Emily Carter had grown used to disappointment. After losing her father 2 years ago, she took over his small flower shop in rural Ohio, barely keeping the doors open. Dreams of becoming a designer in New York had long been buried under bills and reality. Her life had become predictable. Open the shop, arrange bouquets, pay what bills she could, sleep, repeat. On rainy Tuesday afternoon, fate threw her a curveball. Her old Chevy sputtered and died just outside town, the engine coughing before falling silent. She tried everything she could, wiggled wires, tapped the battery, cursed under her breath, but it refused to come back to life. That's when she heard the rumble of a motorcycle behind her. Turning, she saw a man climb off a dusty bike, tall, broad-shouldered, his flannel shirt soaked from the rain, hands stained with grease. He removed his helmet to reveal striking green eyes and a calm demeanor. "You all right?" he asked, approaching slowly. "Car's dead," she muttered, wiping her wet hair from her face, "and I'm late for a flower delivery." He leaned under the hood with practiced ease. "I'm Jake," he said, while fiddling with a loose connection. "I work at Miller's Auto. Mind if I take a look?" With no other options, she nodded. Within minutes, the car sputtered back to life. She stared at him in disbelief. "I was about to have a breakdown, and you just fixed it like magic," she said, trying to laugh through the rain. Jake shrugged with a smile. "Just needed someone who knew where to tap." She offered to pay, but he waved it off. "Nah, just happy to help." The next day, she found a small box of muffins left at her shop with a note. "Thought you might have skipped dinner. Jake." From there, a friendship bloomed. Jake would stop by after his shift, sometimes just to talk. They bonded over simple things, music, their love for old movies, their shared struggles with money. Emily learned that Jake lived in a tiny rented garage unit and preferred working with his hands over chasing big dreams. He was quiet, humble, but reliable, unlike anyone she had met in her brief stint in Manhattan, where men wore suits but carried empty promises. Jake never bragged, never showed off. He listened. He remembered the small things, like how she preferred chamomile tea when she was tired, or how she played with her necklace when she was nervous. 6 months in, on a quiet evening, as they watched fireflies outside the shop, Jake turned to her and said, "I know I don't have much, but what I have, I'd give it all for you." Emily's heart melted. He didn't come with wealth or big plans, but he came with sincerity. That was more than she'd gotten from any man with a polished car or a big city accent. So when he proposed with a tiny silver ring, no diamond, just a hand-engraved flower on the band, she said yes without hesitation. Her friends were skeptical. "You're marrying a mechanic? Are you sure this isn't just a phase? What about your future, Em?" But Emily wasn't interested in marrying money. She wanted a partner, someone real, and Jake, grease-stained hands and all, was as real as they came. What she didn't know was that Jake had a secret, one he hadn't shared, not even a hint, something that would change everything on their wedding day. The church in town was small, but it was filled with warmth. Twinkling fairy lights hung from the rafters, and simple bouquets of daisies lined the pews, all arranged by Emily herself. She had insisted on a modest wedding, rejecting the idea of loans or fancy venues. It wasn't about glamour, it was about love. Jake stood at the altar in a borrowed suit, fidgeting nervously. He looked calm, but inside, a storm brewed. He had made a promise to himself. He wouldn't marry Emily while living a lie. She deserved the truth, even if it meant losing her. The music began, and the doors opened. Emily walked in, glowing in a simple white dress. Her hair was loosely pinned, her smile wide. Jake's heart pounded. Every step she took toward him reminded him how much he loved her, and how much he had hidden. The ceremony was short and sweet. Vows were exchanged, laughter filled the room, and there were tears, the good kind. But as they walked into the reception, held in the flower shop Emily and her father had built together, Jake knew he couldn't keep it in anymore. He tapped his glass and stood, looking out at the crowd of their closest friends. "I need to say something," he began, his voice steady but low. "There's something I've kept from Emily, and all of you. Not because I wanted to deceive her, but because I wanted to know what love felt like without titles, without money, without expectations. Emily's smile faded slightly, her eyes searching his. Jake took a deep breath. My full name isn't just Jake Miller, it's Jacob Montgomery. My father owns Montgomery Industries, the auto and aerospace company. Gasps echoed in the room. A few jaws dropped. I grew up in wealth. I had private tutors, traveled the world, but I never felt like I earned any of it. After my mother died, I walked away from it all. I wanted to work with my hands, live simply, be seen for who I am, not what I own. He turned to Emily, his eyes softening. I didn't plan on falling in love, but you saw me. Not the money, not the name, just me. That's why I waited, because I wanted you to say yes to Jake, the mechanic, not Jacob, the heir. The room was dead silent. Emily stared at him, stunned. You lied to me, she whispered. I hid the truth, yes, but everything else was real. My feelings, my words, this ring, he said, holding up her hand. I would have told you sooner, I just didn't know how. The silence lingered. Everyone waited for her reaction. Then slowly, Emily stepped toward him. You're an idiot, she said softly. Jake blinked, confused. I what? You thought I loved you for fixing my car, she asked, a small smile creeping back. Jake, or Jacob, whatever your name is. I said yes, because you fixed me. Not the engine, not the flower shop, me. The room broke into applause and laughter. Emily wrapped her arms around him, whispering, Next time, lead with the billionaire part, though. I might have gotten you a better suit. They laughed, holding each other tightly. In the end, it wasn't the money that defined their marriage. It was the truth, the love, and the reminder that sometimes the richest hearts are hidden under the dirtiest hands. And from that day forward, Emily Carter didn't just marry a mechanic. She married a man who chose to be ordinary, just to find something truly extraordinary.